If you're an art lover like I'm an art lover, then this book may very well be for you. Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I've got a book review for you today. Before we get to this book review, make sure that you like, subscribe, join my Discord. If you want to support me on Patreon, that would be awesome too. Links are in the description below. Now that I've said that, let's go ahead and get right to this review. This will not be a spoiler-filled review, but this is for the third book of Brandon Sanderson's Secret Projects. If you don't want to know anything about this book, if you want to go in blind, you don't even want to know the title, you probably better step away. If you only don't want to know the title, I would suggest stepping away for a few minutes because I am going to spoil the title, okay? So you've had your time. Here we go. The book I'm reviewing today is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. It's a super cool title. Really catchy. And check out this book cover, guys. This book cover is on point. The artist for this, I don't remember their name, but you'll see it on the book cover, and I'll leave the name in the description as well. Such a talented artist. This cover is just beautiful. And the art style for this cover is really fitting for the type of story that this is. It is a very art-focused title, and I think it's just absolutely great. We'll get into a few details here. Like I said, I'm not going to spoil the book, but I am going to give some details so you know what the world is like and what to expect, okay? It is set in the Cosmere. This is the second of the secret novels that is set in Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. You will see some familiar Cosmere-related things pop up in the book if you're fairly well read in Brandon Sanderson's world. I would say that it takes place both late in the Cosmere and very early in the Cosmere, and there is a time travel element to it, so you're kind of dealing in two different worlds almost, but I won't go into any more details than that because spoilers. And the part of this world that is set late in the Cosmere does have some technology. There's some electricity, there's aspirations to space travel. So I would almost put this in a 1970s Earth setting, although it's not Earth, but it's that same type of setting for at least part of this world. And the rest of this story is set in a more ancient culture. And all of the settings and the characters are very Asian inspired. The main city that our story starts off in is a world where people are employed as painters for one of the possible vocations. There are nightmares that roam this world, and the painters are the champions of this culture that take on those nightmares. And I'm not going to say how it happens because that would spoil the magic system, but they are the primary forces that are set against these nightmares. And one of those painters is Nakaro. He's known for most of the book simply as just Painter, but there are people who refer to him by name at different times in the book too. And he is seen as one of those painters that just does the bare minimum to get by in his job. He's not very well thought of by his colleagues, and most of them pay him no mind. He gets assigned to what is supposedly the most uneventful area of the town to hunt down nightmares. The other main character in this story is Yumi, and she is what's known as a Yokihijo. A Yokihijo is designated by the gods at birth to serve the people by calling up spirits and charging those spirits with taking different forms that will assist the people in their culture. And the Yokihijo is highly revered. There's only 12 or 13 other Yokihijos in this world, and they are weighted on hand and foot. They're given everything so that they can focus solely on their duties of calling up the spirits and managing those spirits. There are other characters as well, secondary characters like Painter's friends, and there's a bartender named Design who is very quirky and cool, and there are some mysteries about her that are revealed throughout the course of the story. And the book is narrated by a familiar character from the Cosmere who shows up in many different Cosmere stories. If you have never read a Cosmere story before, I don't want to spoil that for you, although you may have heard of this person just in passing by other people who talk about Cosmere books. This particular person does narrate the story. It's the same narrator for Tress of the Emerald Sea. So, of course, the magic system in this world is really twofold, but both are heavily devoted to artistry. So you've got Painter, of course, who does his paintings as part of his job. So painting, they use these large brushes, and that is part of the magic system. And then on the flip side, you have the Yokihijo, who calls up the spirits and assists them in transitioning into a form that will help the people of the community. And so each of these is an integral part of this world, and I love the fact that this was a book devoted to art. I thought that was a super cool way to do the magic system. Again, it's unique, as with all of Brandon's magic systems. He tries to do something wholly unique and different, and I just absolutely loved it. The character development was really well done, I thought, for such a short book, and one that I think will probably just be a standalone. I was impressed with how deeply connected I felt to both of the main characters. I felt a connection to some of the other characters in the story as well. They were a lot of fun, but especially Nakaro and Yumi, I thought they were just excellently done. I felt like I understood them completely by the end of the story. I felt like I understood what drives them and the things that they're most passionate about. I thought that was really well done. The world building was excellent as well. Sanderson is known for his world building. While kind of simple world building, it's not a super complex world, but it's very, very well developed, and I like that. And it's a small world. This particular world is very small, so you don't have this big sprawling epic like you do maybe in the Stormlight Archive or in the Cosmere as a whole. It's an individual, very small, very narrowly focused locale. I thought that really made the story easier to grasp. If I could name one thing that fell slightly short for me, it's the humor. Sometimes it really hit, sometimes it didn't. The narrator is really funny, but sometimes he says things that kind of take you out of the story and don't make a lot of sense, especially if you are not familiar with the Cosmere as a whole. And that's one other thing I want to talk about just briefly, and that's how deeply connected this story is to the Cosmere. So, Tress of the Emerald Sea was the first of Brandon Sanderson's secret novels, and while it had a couple of Cosmere connections in it, it wasn't really in depth. It didn't take over the story, so to speak, but the Cosmere connections in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter are very, very heavy. Mostly from the Stormlight Archive. There are some references from other books, but mostly from the Stormlight Archive. That may or may not be a good thing, depending on you. Maybe you haven't read any Cosmere books, but you don't care about being a little bit confused, not knowing what's going on. Then you could probably go ahead and read this as an introduction to Sanderson, but it will make a lot more sense if you have read the Stormlight Archive books. So I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know if this is a book I could recommend to a new Brandon Sanderson reader. There are references to things that you would only understand if you read other Sanderson books. And I think that's kind of intentional. he did the Kickstarter for these secret novels really as a way to draw in his mega fans, to expand on the world that a lot of his fans are already familiar with. So I think these novels are really written for the core Sanderson fans. But if you're a new Sanderson fan, if maybe you've only read a couple of books, you could still probably enjoy it, but I really think you're going to be confused by a few things. Also, one other thing to be aware of, this is a love story. Brandon isn't known for writing great love stories, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really heartfelt. It didn't feel like an insta-love thing. It felt like the characters who fell in love grew to know each other enough over time that they could really understand whether or not they really felt things for each other. There were plenty of times in the story, especially at the end, that I was just crying. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. This is so cute. And I absolutely loved it. But you may feel that love stories in general and fantasy books are just kind of a waste and you don't really want to read about that, and that's fine. But if that's you, this book may not be for you. Because there is a love story element to it. It's not heavy, it's not the overriding plot of the story, but it is there, so just be aware of that. The ending to this book was fantastic, and I will admit, when it got to the end, I could kind of see what was going to come. I could kind of predict, but I was really excited to see how that prediction came to pass, and to see what Sanderson did with it. So I thought the ending was just really well done. Overall, guys, if I had to rank this, I would put it in my hoard. It's definitely a book I'm glad I own. It's definitely a book that I would probably read again at some point if I do a reread of the Cosmere. So, you know, it's not in my soaring category. It's not one of my top books of all time, but it was really, really good, and I really hope that you'll check it out. If you have read all of the books in the Cosmere up to this point, I highly, highly recommend you check out a video by my good friend over at Bookborn. She did a breakdown of all the Easter eggs you missed in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. So I will leave a link to her channel down below, to her specific video down below, but you really should check out her channel in general. I highly recommend it. Yeah, that's a great video if you're a seasoned Cosmere reader, to maybe see things that you didn't pick up when you read this book. So check that out. Let me know in the comments below, have you read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter yet? If you haven't, is it on your list to read? Do you even care to read it? What are your thoughts? I would love to dialogue more with you about it. We did have a read-along going on my Discord for it, so if you want to go and check that out, join in the conversation, you can do that. And until next time, guys, make sure you read more books. I'll talk with you soon.